Hello and welcome to Model Train Fun. Today we're going to look at how to add locomotives to the Central Station tree. Please don't remember to check out the Getting Started video with Märklin Central Station tree if you want to see how the Central Station generally works and how to control locomotives. In this video I'm essentially only going to look at how to add the locomotives. In this video I'm using the Central Station tree with software version 2.3.1-8, which is the Spring 2021 edition. In order to find the version number, you pull down the green tab on the top of the Central Station. Then you click the system here. If the Central Station comes up like this, where you see it says System/Settings, that means it's in a sub-menu of the Central Station, then you need to use Back. Then you see all the settings here to the left-hand side in the blue. You see the different categories of settings at the bottom. You have to go to the next page. On the next page you find a category called Info. You click on the Info. And here you actually find the software version 2.3.1-8. Now, if you have an older version, then you might be missing some features being shown in this video. If you have a newer version, most likely everything will work the same. Now, if you have the older version, then go ahead and update your Central Station to the latest version of the software. You can check out the video updating your Märklin Central Station 3 or the CS3 episode 2 on this channel in order to see how to do this. Let's first start by adding a MFX locomotive. So if you have a MFX locomotive, the only thing you basically need to do is add it to the track. In order to do that, please put the Central Station tree in stop mode. So hit the big stop button. When you see it's red, and you can also see it on the display that the stop highlights, then you can basically put the locomotive on the track. So I'm gonna do that now. All right, make sure it aligns with the track. And then when you got the locomotive on the track, you basically just take the Central Station tree out of stop mode, and then you patiently wait. And then after a little while, it will register the locomotive. Here it goes. It detected there's something on the track. You can see the progress bar is running. It's reading in all the functions and so on from the locomotive. And that's basically it. And now you can see the locomotive basically appeared here. It is actually the very first in the list in this case. However, do remember that depends on the sorting. So now I got the locomotive here, and then I can basically add it to my locomotive control. And then you can see here, it has already read all the function keys of the locomotive. So really easy to add MFX locomotives, just put them on the track. One final thing about the MFX discovery is sometimes the locomotive just doesn't appear. This is very, very rare. I actually very seldom see it. However, if it does occur, then go to the Edit menu here, and then you can click on the bottom menu item here, which is Rediscover Lost MFX Locomotives. All right, let's look at how we add non-MFX locomotives to the Central Station tree. So let me just close the locomotive panel here first. So we got our locomotive list here. So there's actually a couple of ways you can easily add locomotives to the Central Station tree. So you can hit the plus sign here, and it would immediately go into a screen where you can add locomotives. I will cancel this. You can also hit edit up here in the locomotive list, and then I can hit add locomotive in here. It will go to the same screen where you add a locomotive. I will cancel this, and now the final way is you can actually hit edit locos. When you hit edit locos, you are in an editable mode of the locomotive list, and you can also hit the plus button here. Now, if we look at this screen here, there's multiple things you can do. If we are talking about a locomotive that's a Märklin locomotive and it's a non-MFX locomotive, what you want to do in that case is you select the decoder type, you set it to Märklin Motorola format, and then this database icon here actually highlights. So when the database icon highlights, you can click on this one, and now you can basically search in the entire database of modern Märklin locomotives. So I could go in here and search for the model number, for example. So I click on the search field, this one pops up, you click on this one here. So the model number I want is 29530. I click OK, and now you see it actually comes up with a suggestion here, or it actually found this item number in here. So this is very handy if you already know what the model number of the locomotive is, just go ahead and search for it. However, it is a search function, so I can actually do a search for in the entire database for other things than the model number. I could search for the class, or in German it's called Baureihe or BR. So it could be the BR86 I'm looking for. And then it will actually come up with all the model numbers of BR86 that has been produced by Märklin over the years. We see here again the 29530. I will click this one. I will hit OK. And then you will see everything is automatically populated. There's a picture for it. It gets the correct locomotive name. It actually gets all the correct symbols over here on the function keys as well. I would say the only thing I see on this screen that is not correct is if we look at the locomotive symbol down here at the bottom. It is actually a steam engine, so I changed this to steam loco. Now, is this essential? Well, yes and no. If you're just using the central station, this lock symbol actually doesn't mean anything. However, if you're using a mobile station 2 that's connected to the central station, this down here will actually determine what is shown on the central station 2. Now, let's just go ahead and hit OK. We click OK, and now you see I immediately have my locomotive down here. I can go out of the edit mode. I can open my locomotive panel again here to the left. Remember, I could also open the one over to the right if I wanted to. So, and then I just drag my locomotive on here, and now I can immediately go ahead and control my locomotive. Now, you might have a locomotive where you really just want to get it on the track quickly. And the only thing you're really interested in is to be able to drive it. In that case, you can actually use the direct access. So I go here and I click the edit button, and then you see there's additional options down here. There's actually one here, there's a add direct access drive. When I click this one here, you have to choose what protocol it is. You could choose the Märklin Motorola, you could choose the DCC, you can also choose the MFX, although I'm a little unsure how that works, to be quite honest. So let me just in this case choose DCC. So I'm going to choose DCC. Let's assume that the address for the locomotive on the track is 685. So I basically just enter 685. I hit OK, and now you see the 685 actually immediately appears. It looks like it also automatically was assigned over here to the right. If it's not, let's just drag it to the locomotive panel. If we open the locomotive panel, what you will see is that I immediately have access to a locomotive with the DCC address 685, and I immediately have a set of function keys here. Now the function keys are just named with the light as F0, and then from F1 all the way up to F29, and there's no icons put on it, but it means I can immediately go ahead and drive my locomotive. Okay, now we have gone through how to add Märklin locomotives both with MFX and without MFX. Now, how do we add locomotives from other manufacturers, or even locomotives that are using DCC? Because remember, the Central Station 3 is actually capable of using both DCC and MFX and the Märklin Motorola at the same time. So you can basically have locomotive that use any of the protocols running on your layout at the same time. So I have convinced the Central Station 3 not to use MFX. So you see I have the same locomotive as before, that's actually MFX capable. But when I go out of stop mode, you will see it will actually not automatically register. So I will use this as an example of a non-Märklin locomotive. So if you buy a locomotive from Loco, Brava, Pico, or any of the other manufacturers, you'll actually have to add it manually. How do we do that? Well, we go back to our locomotive list, and then as before, we can hit the plus sign, or we can go to the edit menu and so on. Let me just hit the plus sign. We get the new locomotive screen here, and now we are ready to add it manually. In this case, I would like to add it as a Märklin Motorola format, or the Märklin addressing. If you look at it here, when I select the Märklin Motorola or the MM, the number of functions you can add is either 8 or 16. If you choose the DCC format, you can add a lot more functions, up to 29. So in cases where you actually buy a locomotive from a different manufacturer that has more than 16 functions and supports DCC, I would recommend that you add it as DCC, because then you can add all the functions. Now I'm gonna go ahead and add this as Märklin Motorola. I'm gonna choose the 16 functions. Now you have to enter the address. For most manufacturers, you'll find that they use a default address of 3. That's kind of the industry standard, because then everybody knows what the first address is, and then they can change it afterwards. So in this case, though the locomotive already has an address, how do you check that? Well, you go and find your manual, you read the manual and see if it says anything in there about the address. In this case, it has address 27. All right, so I go ahead, I click on address here, I delete the 3, I put in 27. Now I could go ahead and configure more, but what I want to do is I want to check that it actually is address 27. In order to do that, I hit OK for the new locomotive. You see a new locomotive appeared down here, Loc 27. All right, I click, and you see we are not in edit mode, so I need to go into edit mode. I say edit locomotives. I can click on my locomotive. I come back here. You see it's actually already populated something here. However, that's not really what interests me. What interests me is what happens if I turn the light on. Will the light actually turn on? Let's try that. Indeed, the light turns on. Now let's try the horn. I know the horn is on, I believe, F3, so let me click that one. Indeed, the horn is also working, so we actually do have the correct locomotive. Now we can go ahead and continue with the setup of the locomotive. So I already have the address, I have the number of functions. Let me click on the picture here because I would like to give it a sensible picture. When you have the pictures, you can actually, there's actually a big database of locomotives inside the Central Station tree. All of these are the pictures that are part of the Märklin catalog range, but I'm sure there's going to be a picture in there that we can actually use. So we could go and search for the railroad company, for example, DB for Deutsche Bahn. Oh, yeah, I cheated because I used the keyboard. You have to click on the field. This one will pop up. You can use the keyboard with touch screen, and then you can enter DB, and you see it automatically sorts with all of those that contains DB, and you see there's a lot of locomotives in here with DB. I could similarly look for either SBB for the Swiss ones, and you see it sorts by that. I could also find the American ones, and here is Union Pacific as well. You can also go ahead and search for class number. So let's say I want to find the class 103. I can search for class 103, and you see a lot of pictures come up for the class 103. However, what I got on the track is actually a class 185. So let me search for that. However, I will put BR in front for class in German, or German Baureihe. I make a space, and then I'm gonna look for the 185. And then you can see we have all the class 185s here. I can go ahead and choose a picture. Here's the first picture, and you can go ahead and see there's many of the DB BR 185. So the German railroad, National Railroad class 185. I can go ahead. You can see there's even one here with 4 pantographs. However, I'm actually satisfied with the picture of the first one. All right. So I hit OK, and now you see we got a picture here. As a side note, it is also possible to upload your own picture or your own thumbnail into the Central Station tree. I will show that in a future video. We can go ahead here and change the name of the locomotive as well. So maybe this is locomotive 85, so it's class 85, 123. Honestly, I don't know if that exists, but I could put that in. So now I have a locomotive name. And the locomotive symbol here is basically the symbol it gets when you look at the mobile station. It defaults to diesel. That's not what we have. So let's go ahead and choose the electrical. That means that on the mobile station 2, it will show electric locomotive as a symbol now. However, do remember on the mobile station 2, you can also refine the symbol as well. Then the final thing I want to do is put the max speed of the locomotive in real life. I do know that the 185 I have here can actually drive 140 kilometers an hour. So I put that in, and really what it does, it basically just scales the speed accordingly. Now I actually got everything I need in order to go ahead and drive my locomotive. So I hit OK here. I open my panel here to the left. I take my locomotive. Oh, yeah, I can actually drag it. Even though I'm in edit mode, I can still drag it. So you see now my locomotive appears over here. I have the correct icon, I have the correct name. You see up here I have the correct top speed for the locomotive. It automatically gave it the headlights as F0. I got F1 through F15 as function keys. I can make this bigger, and you can see now there's actually a dial, and you can see the top speed here goes to 140. Now let's continue editing the locomotive, because I would also like the functions actually to show something sensible. I make sure I'm in edit mode. If I'm not in edit mode, I click on edit. I click on edit locomotives. I click on my locomotive. I get back into the first configuration screen here, and I see everything is as it was before. Now I want to go to the second tab up here. You see I'm on the info tab. Let me go to the setup tab. In the setup tab here, I can choose various things. In order to actually alter these variables, you need to make sure it's a decoder that actually agrees with the central station tree. But what I want to do is change the functions. So I do know that F2 is actually the running sounds or the engine sounds. So I click on F2 here. And now you see a screen comes up where I can choose both which icon it is. And you see that here in the center of the screen. But also here to the right how the function key will work. So this is going to be the running sounds. The first place I typically would look is always on the tab. You see there's several tabs up here. There's light, there's sound 1, sound 2, mechanic. I go to the common one because that's where the most common ones are. And we can see indeed here in the second line there is the running sounds. When I click on that one, you see it actually comes up nicely as the F2. So here on the common one are the most common ones. If you go under sound, you see there's a lot of different ones. Evidently they are even divided into two. So lots of different sounds you can have here. The second thing I want to do after choosing how the icon look is to make sure over here to the right that it actually functions as I would expect. The switching function actually means that when I click on it, it will start, and then when I click on it again, it will stop, which is exactly what I want to do with my running sound. So I'm happy with the setting over here. I can try and click on the function. And as you can see, it actually starts the engine as well, and you can also turn it off in the same way. Alright, the next function I would like to add here is the horn. So I'm gonna click on F3, which I know is the horn. By the way, how do I know which key does what? Well, I could just click F3 here. I could go over under test and I could click it. And then you can actually hear the sound. And then you can try and then figure it out by trial and error and then have to figure out what the sound is. But typically also the manual will also say what's in there. So I would recommend that you look at the manual and figure out what is the list of functions. So F3 is the horn. So let me go find a horn. I will go under common again. I will see if there's a horn here. Actually, I don't see it. Yes, I do. It's down here. So it's on the last line. There's a horn. So I click on that one. The horn is assigned. I'm gonna click, Actually, I got two choices here. I can click the X and then I kind of go out of the assignment of function, but I can also click OK and then I basically go out of edit of this locomotive completely. When I do that, you can see we already got some icons over here. Let me just experiment a little with them, right? So if I do the horn here, you see it actually continues to sound. So here it depends a little on your decoder. On some sounds, when you click on it, even though you said it's a switching function, it will actually just give the sound and stop. On other sound decoders, depending on how the function is configured, it will continuously actually sound. In this case, it actually continuously sound. Okay, let's go back and edit my locomotive. So I go back to setup, I click on the horn here, and then I try some of the other functions. So in this case, I'm going to try the momentary function, or a temporary one, which basically means that it just initiates it and then the decoder takes over. I'm going to click this one. I'm going to hit OK. Now I'm going to click the horn and then see what the difference is. Now you saw it, the sound decoder in the locomotive will actually decide the length of the sound. Where it was before, it was actually according to how long I pressed, or that was actually, I set it for switching, so it was on off. I had to click to turn the sound on, click to turn it off. Now I only click once and the sound comes on. Now let me try and hold it. So I'm gonna click and hold. And you see when I click and hold, the sound will actually be continuous until I release it. If you have a sound decoder where the sound works like that, depending on how long you hold it, you can also go back in the edit, and we go to the setup, we click on the horn here, and when you have with the horn, we can go to the next one here, down here, the duration function. So here I could set that every time I press on it, I actually want it to sound for 3 seconds, for example. Let's go out and test that. All right. I go out of edit mode of the locomotive and I click the horn. So let's try it. And you see the horn was on for 3 seconds. All right. Let's go back into the locomotive settings. All right, and in this way I can basically continue. It could be that my F1 here, honestly I don't know what the F1 is. Maybe it turns on the rear light or the front light, so either the light at the cab 1 or the cab 2 if it's electrical locomotive, or truly on the front if it's a steam locomotive. I could assign a function key here or put an icon on here if it's internal light in the cab as well. So you see plenty of light functions. We go over, there's plenty of sound functions. So it's just go ahead and actually assign all of the functions. All right. One thing I will recommend after you have spent all the time entering the functions of a locomotive, what you can do is you can save this configuration as part of the central station. So you can go to the system here, and now we see we are in a sub menu. So let's just go out of the sub menu here, and I'm even on page 2 of the categories down here. Let me go back to the page 1. I can click on the system here, so I click system, and then I come into the system settings. Over here on the data side, I can actually save as a backup my configuration. I give it a name and then I hit OK. I'm not going to do that now. Now what will happen is that you will actually save the configuration as an extra file inside the Central Station tree. All right. Now let's imagine I bought this locomotive second-hand. It's been used before, which probably also means that the previous owner has given it an address. I look in the manual, it says the default address is address 3 perhaps, because that's the typical manufacturer default. I try and add address 3, nothing happens. Okay, so what do I do then? Well, then I can actually go ahead and search for the address. But in order to search for the address, I need to make sure that the locomotive is on the programming track, as the search could catch any locomotive essentially that's really running on your layout. So in order to put it on a programming track, I need to make sure that it's connected to the right plug on the Central Station 3. Now, right now, I have a small test track here, so I will imagine that's my programming track. It's actually connected to the Central Station as it's a layout, so let me change that. In order to do that, I make sure I'm in stop mode, and then I will look at the back of my Central Station here. All right, so if you look at the back of the Central Station, right next to the power cable here, this is where I have connected to my layout. If we tilt it a little like this, then you can actually see there's an icon here with some tracks. You see there's something different about this icon that's over here. It actually says something, and now it's actually upside down. So I will actually have to turn it around again. So hopefully you can see it now. You see it actually has a track and it says PROG. It can be hard to see here. So that's actually the programming track. So this is the layout and this is the programming track. So there's two different connectors for that. So what we need to do is we need to connect it to the programming track. As you can see, there are two connectors, so the Central Station 3 can actually have both connected at the same time. You actually get two cables when you buy the Central Station 3 as well. However, my other cable is somewhere in drawer, so I'm just going to move the one from the layout over to the programming track. All right, so I double check. I'm still in stop mode here. Okay, I'm gonna take this one out. All right, and I'm gonna put it in here in the programming track. Okay, so now I have my Central Station, or I have my little test track here connected to the Central Station in the programming track. So now this actually became a programming track. And I can go out of stop mode. Now I can go ahead and look at my Central Station. So I have my locomotive list here again. I go into Edit, and then I want to add a locomotive. I'm going to choose Märklin Motorola. I thought it was address 3, but I would like to find it. However, I don't get the option to find it till I actually have created the locomotive first. So I hit OK. I see I got my Märklin Motorola locomotive here. I actually drag it over. I see that all my function keys are here. Remember, if 3 was the sound, I try and click on that, and indeed nothing happens. Okay. I go back to my locomotive list. I hit Edit. I hit Edit Locomotives. I go back to my locomotive. And now you can see I cannot change the decoder type anymore. It's still address 3. However, a new icon popped up here that says Read. So this one here will actually enable the Central Station 3 to go ahead and search for addresses on the track. However, it will only search on the programming track. So that's why I shifted the plug over. If you have a permanent layout, you can have both connected at the same time. then you just need to remember the locomotive you want to search for needs to be on the programming track. So I hit the icon. It's looking for an address. Let's see if it finds something. It's still looking. Funny enough, it got a little hung up on 25. However, it did actually find 27. Remember, it's the same locomotive as before where I entered it manually. So now we actually have 27. I can hit OK. And now let's try the horn. Indeed, the horn works. So we have success. Yippee! Don't forget, you can always go back and edit your locomotive. You can always hit edit. You can hit edit locos, and you can go and edit any of your existing locos in here. So let me take this one here, for example, and then you can go back and do all the editing as you see fit. Additionally, you can also hit the delete button up here. So if I hit this delete here, it asks you, are you sure you want to delete this one? I'm sure. So let me hit the check mark, and you see it disappeared. Excellent. Now let's go look at the simplified UI and see how it looks there. How do I add locomotives there? In order to go to the simplified UI, click System. You see now it popped up in a submenu. I go back. It's not on the right page. I go to the first page here, and then I find the settings, so the wrench. When I'm here, you can actually choose the interface. You can choose between standard and simplified. So let me go to the simplified UI. Yes, I would like to change it. Then you see the Central Station basically restarts the GUI, and now we're here. All right. Don't forget that the way in the simplified mode to change the locomotive is basically to click on the arrow between the directional buttons. So over here there's no locomotive chosen, so I can go in and I can choose another locomotive. So now I've got 2 locomotives here. Now in order to add an MFX locomotive, exactly the same as before, you basically just put it on the track. It will automatically be added. However, how do I add a locomotive manually? Well, you can go and hit the plus sign again here, and now it's actually exactly the same as in the standard mode. However, it's a little more helpful to you. So if you see here at the top, it actually tells you what to do. Please set the decoder type of the locomotive. Okay, I'm gonna set it to Märklin. Now it suggests the address here. However, if we look at what it's telling us to do up here, enter the locomotive address. Okay, we can enter that. But it also says you can use the DB button. So here it's called DB or database in the simplified UI. So we can again click this one here and it will come up. We can do our search. So maybe it was model 29530. You can search like that. You could also search as I did before for the Baureihe 86, for example. All right. And then you see all the Baureihe 86. I could choose one here. I could click OK. And now the locomotive is here. All right. Let's try one more time. It tells us to select the decoder type. Okay. It tells us to select the address. Let's just say we think it's number 3. Then it will actually go ahead and remember to read the explanation up here. It wants a meaningful locomotive name. So remember this was 185. Actually, I'll just call it 185 dash, and then whatever the number prototype ID is. Maybe it's 234. All right. And then it will actually tell us you also need to select the locomotive image. All right. Let's go and find that. And again, as before, I could search for railway company, for example, SBB for the Swiss. I could also go ahead and search for the Baureihe or the class, and I want to look for class 185. Okay. And then you see the same as before, all the pictures come up. I can look at them and figure out which one fits me best. I will choose this one this time. I will hit OK. And now it says you need to set up the functions. At this point in time, it's also telling you, well, you could also just hit OK and be happy with this in case you don't care how the icons look. But we can also click on the functions here to the left. We come into exactly the same one as before, however, slightly less complicated. If you notice out here to the left, to the right, there is one less option, for example. So how was it? I believe F2 was running sounds, so I can click on F2 again. I can go into the common, because I'll most likely find the most common things I want in the common ones. Don't forget there's much more choices, or many more choices in the light or in the sound 1, 2 section as well. I know F2 over here is the running sound, so I assign it that icon. By the way, I'm happy with this being a switching function, because I want to click the button, it turns on, the sound starts, I want to click it and it ends again. F3, remember that one was the horn, so I click on the horn, okay. And that is actually a momentary function, right? You send it to the locomotive and it will sound the horn and automatically stop the horn again. So that's a momentary one. And so on. And don't forget to check out the manual for the locomotive, what the sounds are. Try and find what matches the best of the icons in here. And remember to set the function as well. I can hit OK. And you will see my locomotive come up. I have the icon I've chosen here at the bottom. I have the name I made. And then I actually also have all the icons over here. I do see that it didn't ask me, I didn't remember it asking me for the max speed here on the dial. Let's try and go back. We can hit the configuration. So that's actually not on the, well, it is. It is actually down here on the first page. So here at the bottom, you can set the anticipated max prototypical speed. That was actually 140 for this one. And when I'm here, I also see another thing that I can remember to do, and that's the lock symbol. It's currently set to diesel. It is actually an electric. However, do remember it doesn't matter for the Central Station 3. This is to help out the Mobile Station 2. All right. There are additional functions in here on the Setup tab. Normally, you would not need to change any of these. I hit OK. And now we see the dial actually changed. Most excellent. So if we summarize the simplified UI, you hit plus to actually add a locomotive. You hit the wrench to actually edit the locomotive. And if you want to delete the locomotive, you hit the wrench. And then you can actually see here at the top, there's also a delete icon, so I can delete my locomotive again. It asks me if I want to delete the locomotive. I say yes. All right, and now it's deleted. So you see, you got the basic functionality in the simplified UI as well. But don't forget, whatever you do in the simplified UI, you'll be able to see in the standard UI. And whatever you do in the standard UI, you'll be able to see in the simplified UI. So you can basically mix and match as you see fit. If you like this video, please go ahead and hit the like button. If you do have any tips or tricks, comments or questions, please use the description or the comments below the video. I try and answer as many questions as I can, and I always love getting new tips and tricks. Otherwise, consider subscribing to the channel, hitting the little bell notification as well, such that you will get alerted when new videos appear on the channel. Enjoy!